Hey, my name is Brittany Craft. I'm a registered dietitian with Ochsner's Eat Fit Northshore. I'm here with Healthier Northshore filming a grocery store tour here at Acquistapace's Covington, so come on in. Starting our tour in the produce section for a reason. This is where we really encourage you to start your shopping trip and perhaps spend most of your time is on the perimeter of the store. And the reason we say that is that's where you're going to find most of your fresh produce, meat items, things that we want to make up the bulk of our diets. In the inside of the store, there are some really good items as well. So not to say we're not going to go there at all, but that's where we tend to find more of the processed items that we want to limit more on an everyday diet. Breakfast, we might tend to have more fruit available, but lunch and dinner is a really good opportunity to try to get at least 5 servings of non-starchy vegetables in a day. A non-starchy vegetable, there are so many options. It's really any vegetable that you can find except for your starchy vegetables like potatoes, beans, peas, and corn. So we might reach for a fresh salad, some roasted broccoli. Bok choy is new popular item that we really enjoy nowadays. But lots of good choices here behind me for your non-starchy vegetables. We really encourage making your plate colorful. So every color of our fruits and vegetables that we incorporate into our diet, every diverse variety that we have contributes different micronutrients to our diet. That's why when we tell children to make their plate a rainbow, there's purpose behind that. A cost-saving measure is, while we love pre-cut produce, it tends to have a little bit of a cost premium to it. So if we're trying to save some money, getting just the whole produce is going to help us save a little bit. That being said, if money's not your problem, it's time. We love having stuff like this around available in our fridge to make sure that we're grabbing for it. I know I'm so much more likely to eat sliced apple slices as opposed to biting into a whole apple. So if that's going to be something that's going to help you get more veggies and fruit into your diet, shoot for that. We love bagged salads as a time saver, but as with any salad, we just need to consider the things that we're adding onto our fresh veggies. This might be a starting point for something that would be a meal, but we need to make sure, one, that we're incorporating some protein sources, whether that's a rotisserie chicken, boiled eggs, something to make it a little bit more filling if it's a meal in and of itself. And then just thinking about maybe we're going to swap in a different dressing than the ones that come in here because they tend to be a little bit higher in sodium than we might want. Most Americans eat too much sodium. The American Heart Association recommends that for heart health, we have 2,300 milligrams or less of sodium a day from most individuals. A great way to add flavor without adding salt is to use fresh or even dried herbs and spices. I love to incorporate fresh herbs whenever I can, and these are actually something that you can grow pretty easily in pots at your house if you're interested in doing that as well. Another big heavy hitter in terms of flavor and nutrition are some local products like these. We have 6 Day Acres microgreens, and we also have Sam Sprouts microgreens. These are 2 local growers that we really love that have some great nutrition products that you can put on top of salads, on top of sandwiches, on any finished dish to add a little bit of a pop of color. Another really great way to add flavors to dishes without adding salt or sugar or fat are to incorporate some of your aromatic vegetables, and here in Louisiana we know how to do that. So garlic, onion, we have some fresh cut ones here, and then also using spices. So using fresh peppers, using dried spices, and then also some local products. This is Louisiana Pepper Exchange, so it's just a pureed pepper that you can add into sauces or any dish to add a lot of flavor with really sound nutrition as well. Pop quiz for you. What is the difference between all of the colors of bell pepper? The truth is they're all the same plant, just at different levels of maturity. So the plant's going to start out green, and then as it matures and ripens, finally turn up to this beautiful red. That's why our colorful bell peppers tend to be a little bit sweeter, tend to have a slightly different nutrient profile as the plant matures. Another question we get pretty often is whether fresh, frozen, or canned produce will be your better option. Fresh always is probably the best choice, but as a very close second best, frozen is a great option. It can save some money to get frozen produce. You can get items that aren't perhaps in season for fresh, and fresh or frozen items are frozen at their peak of ripeness, so they really are nutrient packed. As long as we're getting produce that's frozen just as the produce rather than in a garlic or a cheese sauce, those are really solid choices. Canned also can be a great choice. I would probably put it as the last of the 3, but if we're looking at saving money, that can be a great option. We just want to look for no salt added or no sugar added varieties of canned produce. It's recommended to choose lean proteins like chicken, turkey, or leaner cuts of beef and pork. So when we're looking for leaner cut, we're typically looking for some keywords like loin, sirloin, tenderloin, flank, or round. We can also kind of just see it. What we're trying to avoid is saturated fat in the fattier meats. So that tends to be, your big chunks of fat, or even the marbling. That white is your saturated fat that has a negative impact on your cardiovascular health. It's recommended to incorporate seafood into our diet 2 times a week. We can do that around here. So we like to choose things that are considered fatty fish, like salmon or tuna. These contain omega-3s, which is a fatty acid that our body can't produce by itself. We have to get it in the food we eat. So things like fatty fish, flax seeds, walnuts, those are areas that we can incorporate it into our diet. Because we have such great access to seafood around here, I do want to mention, if you are needing to restrict sodium in your diet, shellfish are going to be naturally higher in sodium than your fresh fish. So crab meat, shrimp are going to be higher in sodium. That doesn't mean we can't incorporate it, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't have other good health benefits, but just keep that in mind when you think about portion sizes, or when you think about having an already high salt item and we're adding some crawfish boil to it. It can really start to add up that way. Ground turkey is a really great substitute for ground beef, just because it's going to be very naturally lower fat. But 93% ground beef is still a really good option to incorporate. And then as far as chicken goes, choosing dark meat versus white meat really isn't going to make the biggest impact. I actually really enjoy to have chicken thighs, because it's a very tender meat that you can cook in a variety of different ways and still have a very tender result. So that's a good option. The biggest thing that we need to consider with poultry is actually the skin. So just removing the skin, that's the greatest source of the saturated fat that we'll have in a chicken product. And deli meat would be things that we would lump in with processed meats, just like sausage. So things that we would generally try to limit. We understand that these are items that you probably incorporate into your diet. We really just want to think about what are we doing 90% of the time or most of the time. One of my biggest things with deli meat is we really don't put enough on our sandwiches to make it a really protein-packed or filling meal, because you might do a few slices, which might end up more like 1 or 2 ounces of meat, which also gets you up to 500 milligrams of sodium. So better options might be a rotisserie chicken with the skin off, or leftovers from dinner before that we slice up and put into a sandwich. It can be a shocker for some, but the cholesterol in foods does not really impact your body's cholesterol near as much as it was previously thought. So food items like eggs that have cholesterol in them are not really a concern for heart health. So we've actually added eggs back to many heart healthy menus in hospitals. So as long as you're having 1 or 2 a day, that shouldn't be a concern. If you're having large amounts of eggs, you can consider incorporating some egg whites in with the regular eggs, but really we get a lot of the vitamins and fat soluble vitamins from the yolk itself, so I like to keep those in. Choosing something like a part skim mozzarella could be an option to keep the saturated fat low, or even better would be like the fresh buffalo mozzarella. Those tend to be your lower sodium options. The fresh mozzarella, ricotta, or even Swiss cheese is probably your lowest sodium sliced cheese that you can find on shelves, so that's a really good option. On the other side, your American cheese is going to be one of the saltiest ones you can find, so that's one that I tend to leave on the shelf. When choosing a yogurt, we want to just try to find either plain unsweetened and then sweeten it ourselves, or at a variety that's lower in added sugar. So I really like the Oikos 000. It's the black package that's sweetened with stevia. And then if you're going to use the plain yogurt, you can also incorporate that into a lot of recipes in place of something like sour cream. So I would actually choose probably the 2% just to have that same creamy aspect as sour cream, but this is great as a dip. It's great in mixed casserole recipes. It really is very versatile. When it comes to milks, for dairy milk we want to choose the lower fat varieties, which means skim or 1%, but there's a lot of plant-based milks that are options to us that are really good as well. When we're trying to find one that's more equivalent to dairy milk in terms of protein, I really like the unsweetened Ripple, which is like a pea protein milk that's newer on the line. And then also soy milk would be probably your closest swap if you're thinking of having something non-dairy for your kids. When we're choosing something like oat milks or almond milk, some of your nut milks, we just want to keep in mind that they are going to be pretty naturally low in protein, and we want to choose the unsweetened varieties of them. Another big popular one nowadays has been oat milk. Still solid if we want to get an unsweetened variety, but just keep in mind it does tend to be a bit higher in carbs than your other non-dairy milks. So for those of you who want to lower carbs or have diabetes perhaps, that might not be the best option for you. When it comes to picking breads, what we're looking for is 100% whole wheat. That means it's maintained all parts of the wheat grain and is higher in B vitamins, heart-healthy fats, and fiber. So a big key that we're going to look for is, like I said, the 100% whole grain. It's going to be vastly different than something that's like a honey wheat or a white wheat, because a lot of times those have caramel color added to make it look like you're getting a true 100% whole wheat bread when you might not be. Another thing to look for is on the ingredients list. If we see the words enriched wheat flour, that's an indicator to me that that's some white flour. You know, they removed the parts of the grain and had to enrich it back and add some of the vitamins and minerals back. So I'd rather have it just in its whole form as the 100% whole wheat. Sweeteners, something like honey or agave, would be two items that I would say get a health halo, but when it comes gram per gram or teaspoon per teaspoon, they're the same as just regular granulated table sugar with having sugar content. The only benefit to choosing honey would be choosing local honey, because it can help with seasonal allergies, but that would be the truest benefit for choosing something like that. So we just want to choose them in moderation, or if we're going to have items with, you know, a larger amount of sweetener, we can choose some plant-based, no sugar added sweeteners. So ones that I like, some of the newer ones, allulose is very new to the market. They have granulated allulose or an allulose syrup that's great for like a sweet tea or a coffee drink. There is also Swerve. Swerve is a local product that is great for baking. So it measures 1:1 like sugar, and it caramelizes too. So they have confectioners, granulars, or brown sugar. So that's a really good option. And then finally, monk fruit would be another that I would recommend. So allulose, monk fruit, stevia, and Swerve would be your top no sugar added choices. Nuts and nut butters can be a really good source of protein, and plant-based protein at that. So something I really do encourage incorporating into our diets. That's a great addition to a snack that might have been just an apple. You know, it's a complex carb, but it's kind of lacking in protein to keep us feeling full. So rather than eating an apple by itself, I do encourage a tablespoon or two of peanut butter with it. When we're choosing a peanut butter, we just want to really pay attention to the ingredients list. So ideally, a peanut butter ingredients list would be peanuts or peanuts and salt. This one right here is just dry roasted peanuts and palm oil. Some of the things that I try to stay away from when choosing a peanut butter is some brands will have peanuts and then hydrogenated vegetable oil in it. That's something that does contribute some trans fats, which the recommended amount of trans fat in a day is 0 grams. It increases your bad cholesterol and decreases your good cholesterol. So as long as we're a little choosy on the brands that we choose, peanut butter can be a really great addition to any diet. Like every section of the grocery store, the freezer section has your full spectrum of really high quality items that would be great to incorporate into every diet, or some of the items that we would want to choose less often. So in this case, the tool like the EatFit app really is a great option. It's Eat Space Fit on your app or Google Play Store. And then when you download it, there's a section called EatFit Shopping Guides that you can click on, and it'll pull up many different grocery guides, including your just generic EatFit shopping guide. It has brand-specific items through every section of the grocery store that our team of dietitians recommend. Dry goods aisle is a really great place where we can save some money. Choosing something like dried beans or dried rice would be a great way that we can add a lot of bulk to meals without adding a lot of cost to meals. My tips here are going to be beans are a great choice because that's plant-based protein, a really good option. When we're choosing something like rices, we want to choose brown rice, dried brown rice, or some of your other whole grains like quinoa, lentils. Those are really great options to incorporate into your diet. So let's head this way. All right, so with pasta sauces, our biggest tripping points are typically sugars and sodium. So that's just going to be browsing by, finding the brands that kind of meet your needs. One that we really like that's local is Sal and Judy's Heart Smart sauce. So if we compare this to just your typical Prego, 115 milligrams of sodium in your Sal and Judy's compared to 480 in your Prego. So just a simple swap of brands can really make a big difference in something like this. When it comes to pastas, there's a lot of really good swaps that we can incorporate. So there's a lot more available now, but things like a chickpea pasta, like Banza pasta, are a great swap in for regular pastas because it's higher in protein. The flavor is very, very close. The texture is pretty consistent with what you're used to, and it's a way to add protein to any dish. And then also, if you're going to just choose pasta otherwise, we would recommend the 100% whole grain noodles instead. Other swaps could be something like spaghetti squash, zoodles, or cauliflower rice instead of rice to have some lower carb alternatives. For oils, we generally just recommend any plant-based oil. I know olive oil is a very popular one. So there's kind of two options. You can go in the direction of olive oil. Something like extra light olive oil is a great choice for higher heat cooking. So if we're roasting or cooking in a saute pan, I would choose the extra light or the light for that because it's not going to smoke as quickly. Whereas your extra virgin olive oil, while still very nutritionally similar, this is going to be what we're going to use for something that we're eating fresh, like a salad or something that's marinated and eaten without cooking. Otherwise it'll smoke and it impacts taste, and also it starts to break down, so it's not really as good for us nutritionally either. Another thing that's kind of been more popular in recent years is coconut oil. So coconut oil, while it's plant-based, it's one of the few plant-based oils that does contain saturated fat, which is not as great for our cardiovascular health. And research is kind of mixed on this, but where we stand is that it's kind of your middle ground to butter. So I'd rather choose plant-based oils, but if there's something that requires the texture or taste of coconut oil, that's a decent choice. It's going to be a little bit better than butter even then. These things add all the flavor to our salads, or a lot of it, but we do want to choose ones that are going to have a good, solid nutrition facts label on the back. So some of the brands that I really like, Hanley's, that's local. All of these are Eat Fit approved options. Lower in sugar. The sugar in the strawberry vinaigrette actually comes from strawberries. Another brand that I like that's more widely available everywhere else is Primal Kitchen. They have some pretty solid dressings as well. Thank you so much for joining us. To learn more, you can visit healthiernorthshore.health, or to get your hands on that shopping guide, you can go to eatfitnorthshore.com or download our free Eat Fit app and follow us both on Facebook, Healthier North Shore, or Eat Fit North Shore.